Hey, 42 here. On May the 5th, 1821, one of the most notorious men in human history passed away. That man was Napoleon Bonaparte. He had conquered most of Europe, driven armies into Russia, taken on the British Empire, and changed the face of history forever. And now, he was dead. But this isn't where his story would end. Although his death was ruled to be caused by a cancerous stomach ulcer, the real cause of his death has remained in dispute to this very day, 200 years later. Some consider he was the victim of political murder, as evidence of long-term exposure to arsenic was found in his hair. Others pose that he was killed by toxic fumes released by his wallpaper whilst in exile on St. Helena. Further theories indicate he may have been the victim of medical malpractice, poisoning his body and sending his internal organs into disarray. Many more say he was killed by disease, and the descendants of aristocrats say their ancestors killed him in revenge for his revolution, and for the small fact that he fathered a child with one of their wives. The count married to the wife in question also happened to be in charge of Napoleon's food. Could he have slipped something poisonous into the emperor's foie gras? To this day, nobody knows. Humans have a long and storied history of wanting to poison each other. Hieronymus was a 17th century Roman entrepreneur who taught wealthy wives how to poison their husbands and take their riches for themselves. The Borgia were famous for poisoning just about everyone in existence. Karen Wettenhahn was a toxicologist and chemistry professor in the late 90s who, after spilling a tiny speck of dimethyl mercury, soon found herself slurring her words, slipping into a coma, and eventually death. Despite the fact that the spilt droplet had landed on a hand protected by a rubber glove. But what exactly is a toxin? And what is a poison? Are they the same thing? And how are they related to that other nasty substance, venom? Well, firstly, poison, toxin, and venom are not the same thing. Poisons are substances that can cause harm or death to an organism. Strychnine and lead are examples of poisons. Toxins, however, have mostly the same effects, but they are produced by living organisms or within cells. And venom, aside from being a 7'6" alien lifeform bonded to a disgruntled photographer, is toxins that are secreted and injected by animals such as snakes that attack their victim cells, nervous systems, muscles, and more. Many animals have specifically evolved to use these toxin-rich venoms as means of attack or defense, whereas you have simply evolved to watch YouTube videos whilst you sit on the toilet. We've all heard about the notorious poisons and toxins, from Walter White ricin to the male platypus that attempts to inject venom using its webbed feet, and the Novichok nerve agents that damage the central nervous system, which were used in the attempted assassination of a former Russian agent in England by a pair of cathedral enthusiasts. Cerebra odolum, the suicide tree, releases a cardiotoxin that kills hundreds of people in Southeast Asia. And the neurotoxin botulinum is the gram for gram deadliest substance in the known universe. Just edging out Justin Bieber's music for the top spot. Which is ironic, because give him 10 more years and he'll be injecting botulinum into his face. Yes, Botox, that infamous Hollywood beauty injection that transforms leather-faced has-beens into balloon animals, is manufactured from the deadliest substance on the planet. But you don't need to be an ex-spy to suffer from deadly poisons. What if I told you that you come into contact with lethal substances every day, and you're surrounded by one right now? For a start, countless foods you eat, such as almonds, barley, soybeans, and maize, metabolize into cyanide, which, if you don't already know, can cause you to vomit, shit yourself, and die, just like a vindaloo. But don't worry, your liver produces an enzyme that denatures cyanide, making it harmless in sufficiently small quantities. But never, ever eat the pit of a cherry, peach, apricot, or nectarine if it is broken, as the kernel inside the pit, once exposed to air, produces cyanide, and swallowing just a couple of broken cherry pits can kill a man. And in case you're thinking, don't worry, I'll just wash them away with a juice cleanse, you should probably note that whilst they may contain useful nutrients and vitamins, juice cleanses don't really do anything to cleanse your bloodstream of toxins. Your body can already do that on its own very well. Cleanses and detoxing in general are one of the 21st century's most prolific mass consumer scams. But who or what are the primary poison culprits in your daily life? Well, the most prolific perpetrator is none other than the very thing that's most essential to your survival. Air. That's right, the air is slowly attempting to take your breath away permanently. And not in a Berlin Tom Cruise 80s power ballad sort of way either. Air pollution has been a problem for a long time. In 61 AD, Lucius Annius Seneca the Younger took to his diary to whine about Rome's soot-ridden air, and how much better he felt as soon as he'd left. In 1273, London air became so unbreathable that coal use was widely banned. In 1948, Pennsylvania was blacked out for 5 days in a cloud of carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, and metal dust, burning the eyes and throats of the city's residents. In 2020, Australian bushfires produced so much smoke that New Zealand was temporarily turned orange, a country 2,000 miles away, separated by the Tasman Sea. The air you're breathing right now is probably poisoning you, especially if you live in a city. And if you happen to live in a developing nation where solid fuel consuming cook stoves are widely used, then you may find yourself victim to indoor air pollution that claims over 3.8 million lives every year due to inefficient use of solid fuel and kerosene. Alongside this, outdoor air pollution from sources such as cars, manufacturing, and even aerosolized deodorant has become so bad that it has been shown to take 3 years off your life. That's possibly worse than smoking tobacco. A recent study at the University of Washington concluded that air pollution in cities is as bad for your health as smoking 20 cigarettes a day. Whilst we're still uncertain which is the worst of the two, it is clear that most city dwellers consume far more air pollution than cigarette smoke. The air in Chad, for instance, is so bad that it takes 7.9 years off your life. Just imagine it, 7.9 years you could have spent watching my videos, gone forever. Air pollution can cause or is linked to health complications such as pneumonia, stroke, heart disease, pulmonary disease, lung cancer, inflammation, arterial plaque buildup, and more. It has even been shown in a 2014 study conducted by the University of Rochester Medical Center that early exposure to air pollution damages the brain, similar to conditions like autism and schizophrenia, with lasting effects like diminished short-term memory, poor learning, and impulsive behavior. Children are at particular risk because of how immature their respiratory organs are. In the UK, this causes an estimated 40,000 early deaths per year, with London's Oxford Street being one of the most polluted roads on Earth. 1 in 12 deaths in London is linked to its dirty air. However, if you want to sample the world's most atrocious quality air, you need to head east. Almost all of the 100 most polluted cities are locations in China and India. But the West isn't far behind. European air-related deaths are estimated to be as high as 800,000 annually. Not exactly the best scenario we found ourselves in, is it? Well, it gets worse. Not only is the air you're breathing poisonous, but the very substance that you use to contain your food, water, and waste is also filled with poisonous chemicals. I'm of course referring to plastics. If you thought they were merely bad because dolphins could get tangled in beer rings, think again. And I'm not trying to take any moral high ground here. I use plastic just as much as everyone else who doesn't wear bamboo socks. But the science is a bit scary. Writing for the Journal of Epidemiology and Community Health, a team of scientists revealed that food storage, packaging, processing, and preparation equipment contained over 4,000 chemical substances, one of which was formaldehyde, a highly toxic systemic poison and category 1B carcinogen. In other words, a recipe for cancer. Alongside this, chemicals such as bisphenol A, BPA, have been widely used in plastics to make them more durable and are regularly used in transparent plastics, the kind used in storage containers and baby bottles. Research has increasingly shown that BPA use in plastics can disrupt many bodily functions, such as hormones and reproductive systems. There's even been evidence that it's linked to abnormal penis development in men. And no, I'm sorry, that doesn't mean abnormally large. Quite the opposite. It's even suspected to be linked to heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. The exposure to BPAs in the global population is extraordinarily high. One study, conducted by the CDC, demonstrated that in 2,517 urine samples from people 6 years and older, BPAs were present in a whopping 93% of them. Likewise, one of the most commonly used plasticizers in the world, phthalates, are equally widespread and dangerous, with links to pregnancy complications and extensive fertility issues. One study showed that the level of phthalates in people's bodies were 35% higher if they'd done something as simple as eating out the night before. The response to this startling news has been a mixed bag. BPA use in baby bottles and feeding cups has been banned in the US and EU, but that's about it. Teenagers and adults are still widely overexposed to plastics and their related toxins, and often undereducated and unaware of the dangers they pose, outside of David Attenborough showing a turtle swimming in an ocean of Sainsbury's shopping bags. BPAs continue to put male fertility at risk by rapidly decreasing sperm quality, and repeated exposure over your lifetime can alter your normal hormonal signaling and cause you to develop countless chronic diseases such as type 2 diabetes, breast cancer, or artery diseases. The threat is ramified by the fact that plastics, once created, are extremely difficult to get rid of, if at all possible. In fact, most of it remains in existence, scattered around the planet or buried in landfills. 79% of the 8.3 billion metric tons of plastics that have been produced so far is buried in the earth and constantly leaches toxins into the soil, which means that slow but steady plastics poisoning is a big part of all our lives, and this probably isn't going to change anytime soon. But your health will, and for the worse. This is reinforced by the fact that when it comes to recycling plastics, nobody has any idea on how to make them less toxic. In many ways, recycled plastics are actually even more toxic. As nobody has figured out how to remove toxic additives from plastics, recycled waste products like desks, tires, or fences can start to release dangerous toxins during their degrading process, with subsequent recycling and usage only compounding their toxicity. It's little surprise then that we're looking at health phenomena like 40-year sperm count declines of over 50%. We're being poisoned left, right, and centre by the air we breathe and the plastics we touch. Yet, there's one more poisonous thing in your life that really adds insult to injury. Oxygen. That big old bag of chemical sunshine that keeps you alive, well, that's a toxin too. Although we breathe it in and your body uses it to break down sugars and foods to produce energy, your body also produces oxygen-free radicals. What are those, I hear you ask? They're atoms with one extra electron that damages your DNA, biomolecules, proteins, and lipids, which is the biological equivalent of rust. In other words, all that breathing we're doing is keeping us alive, sure, but it's also making us age. It's the one ironic poison that we can never escape from. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please consider supporting me. You can either join the 42 Club here on YouTube by clicking the join button below, or heading on over to Patreon and supporting me there. Thank you. You can also get your hands on a first edition signed copy of my new book, Stick a Flag in It, by heading on over to Unbound Publishing and pre-ordering your copy today.